Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interviewed some of the most successful people in Orange County. I'm Danny Flores, your host, and today's honored guest is Tullio Siragusa, zooming in from Myrtle Beach, North Carolina. Thank you so much, Tullio, for joining us today.
Hey, Danny, pleasure to be here. It's South. Do you want to start over? It's South Carolina.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go with South Carolina then. Okay.
Good thing we're not live. So if you want to, I get this. I've done these shows too. So if you could just say from South Carolina. It doesn't have to be Myrtle Beach.
Okay. All right. Well, I got the coast correct then.
Yeah, East Coast. There you go.
Yes. Well, Tullio, we were talking before we got on, and you said you were born in Switzerland. So tell us how that happened, the different countries you lived in, and how you ended up in America chasing the American dream.
Yes, my dad was the son of a farmer from Italy, southern Italy, Sicily in particular, and when he was serenading my mother, they used to do that back then, and
Right.
asked permission to date my mother. My mother's dad, my grandpa, was a bit of an aristocrat and was like, "You need to make something of yourself, young man, if you want to date my daughter." So he immigrated to Switzerland to make something of himself, to pursue a career, and spent almost 30 years there. After 5 years, came back, married my mother, and then sort of picked up his bride and started a family in Switzerland. And after many years, he was part of a generation where uh, making it meant you own properties, right? So if you owned properties, that means you had sort of made it. And so he invested in buying all kinds of properties back in Italy while he was in Switzerland, and then decided he wanted to retire early and took me and my brothers, I'm the youngest of three, and took us to Sicily at I was 6. But my brothers didn't like it there. We were used to, very different lifestyle in Switzerland from Sicily. And then it turns out my father's sister, who had moved to New York after she got married, was complaining that she had no one on her side of the family in New York or in the U.S. And my dad was like, "I'm semi-retired. The kids don't like it here. We've already done Switzerland. If you make the papers, we'll come to America and give the kids the American dream, right?" And 2 years after that, here we were on the East Coast in New York. And July 20th, 1982 was the year that we moved here.
So how old were you then when you landed in New York?
I think I was 12, 11 or 12.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So I was at the funny adolescent to teenage transition year, and I didn't speak any English. So I had to pick up the language and get used to a whole different culture while going into junior high school. So that was quite a challenge, but somehow I made it through, managed through it, and have pursued that dream ever since.
Wow. Well, if you wouldn't have told me that you learned English when you were about 12, I would have never known. It looks like it's your native tongue, so you speak it extremely well, just like the rest of us.
I grew up speaking 3 languages. I think maybe that helped. But if you speak to my brothers, they're a little older than me. They still have a bit of an Italian accent. So somehow I managed to drop it. I don't know how, but I'm grateful that I did. Not that I have anything against accents, but I don't.
Right.
So
now you're a fractional COO now. Tell us what you do in regards to that and how you got there, right? Working your way out of a W-2 job and becoming who you are now.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a coach, a mentor, a teacher. That's always been my dream. And my canvas changed a little bit over the years. And I've been fortunate enough to do a little bit of both academic as well as the business world
Mhm.
in terms of mentoring and coaching and teaching. But I had a good 33-year run as an operating executive or a senior executive with companies that some of them became market leaders. The last one became a unicorn. I was the chief strategy officer, and then I became the CMO who merged 6 businesses into one brand. And that unification was a catalyst to helping the business ultimately get acquired from a private equity for $1.5 billion. So I had a very strong run culminating 33 years of developing skills as a sales leader, marketing leader, as an operational leader. But one of the things that really shaped me was the understanding that everything evolves around people. And so in the past 15 years or so, I focus more of my energy on understanding the dynamics of teams and people, organizational structures. And I was very fortunate to get introduced to self-management principles. And those self-management principles really changed my view of leadership. The concept of servant leadership really became something that has defined who I am. And in self-management environment, it's not so much about being the boss as it is being the person who empowers other leaders. And so it's based on equivalence. It's a collaborative environment, so you really learn to collaborate as a team and value everybody's input and opinion. And it's a shared authority model. So you learn to kind of let go of the ego of needing to have climbed the ladder, so to speak.
Mhm.
Especially us Gen Xers, we were sold on this idea that if you climb the ladder, you get to the top. That's the best place to be. And then when you
Right,
get
right.
there, it's very lonely. And, and
Yeah, yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
what happened? This is not so
yeah,
great over here.
yeah.
Um, so I was fortunate to get exposed to these self-management principles. And then what I decided was on a 10-year plan that I would pursue helping organization become self-managed, that I would pursue infusing empathy into the workplace. I became a design thinking practitioner, an advisor to the University of California, Riverside design thinking program. So it's become my mission really to help organizations be human centric. And the best way I felt that I could do that would be as a fractional executive, where I'm completely committed to that client, but I work as an outsider coming onto the inside, which gives you a lot of freedom to just speak your truth about what you're really seeing and what needs to happen and what change needs to be implemented. And so I enjoyed that a lot, and I've impacted a few organizations, one of which I've been working with for over a year, that has transitioned to a self-managed environment, highly collaborative, very empathetic organization. We've actually defined a new operating model for marketing, empathetic marketing. We've just recently launched a platform, a new product called AI CMO, which is a AI-driven chief marketing officer platform with highly empathetic approach to the market. So it's a pleasure to see organizations adopting these principles, but it's even more exciting in the past few years. There have been studies from prominent companies like McKinsey, Deloitte, and others who are
Mhm.
now taunting the benefits of these kinds of environments, the ROI of operating in this kind of a structure where people-centric structure, empathy at work, self-management structure, and it's a validation point for some of us that maybe years ago we were kind of called crazies
Mhm,
for
mhm.
thinking that you can actually have an environment without bosses. And I got to tell you, Danny, so many things have been said about that. People say, "Oh, is this socialism?" And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's conscious capitalism. It's not
Right.
socialism." So it's been an interesting journey, and I set out on this journey for 10 years where I say, I'm going to go down this path, and my goal would be to speak and to write and to publish books and to really be a force for spreading more empathy, especially in the workplace. And I co-founded a movement called radicalpurpose.org with a few other of us crazies, all designed to help organizations and individuals learn about self-management principles so that they can get more agency in their work and really more satisfaction and fulfillment.
Now, just so that people that are our audience that is watching, when you say self-managed, usually when an entrepreneur starts a company, they have their hands controlling many things. Now, is self-managed meaning that he kind of pulls himself away from that and creates an organization that basically functions without him or her?
That's a great question. And that would be chaotic if that was the case, right? It's not about
Yeah,
removing yourself as it is creating an environment for collaboration where you are operating with a sense of equivalence. So you take all the pressure of you having to make all the decisions top down, which
right,
is the
right,
traditional model, very hierarchical, what we call fiat model, right? It's top down. Now
right.
all the pressure is on you or a couple of or a handful of people that have to make the decision of the fate of the company. That's a
Right.
lot of pressure. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And versus one that says, let's turn the model upside down and realize we're working with adults. We don't have to treat people like children.
Mhm.
And those adults make difficult decisions every day in their lives. Where to live, whether to buy a house, whether to get married, whether to have children, whether to get divorced. They make these difficult decisions every day. So they're perfectly capable of making complex, difficult choices.
Right.
So the model says all of us can collaborate to get the collective wisdom, the collective intelligence to get better outcomes, better innovation.
Right.
And so to do that effectively, you have to have some tools, right? So I've adopted OKRs. My OKRs are very different. They're not owner based, they're champion based. So instead of having an OKR owner, there's a champion, and there are people who participate as a team towards moving that goal forward. There are
Mhm.
people who can participate as observers on an OKR. Perhaps someone in the organization has never worked on a branding effort.
Right.
Maybe they're
Right.
a developer, but they want to get exposure on what that looks like. They can
Mhm.
participate as an observer. And all of this is designed to accomplish four key things. One is the need for belonging to something greater than yourself. This is something we discovered when we were researching what are the key tenets to highly engaged organizations when I was putting together radicalpurpose.org. And we learned that people have a desire for uh, being part of something greater than themselves. This is why um, religion, politics is so big, right?
Right. Right.
Organized
Right.
things are so big. Now, people also have a desire to have meaning behind what they're doing, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
This is why we volunteer. This is why we have children. This is why we build families. That gives meaning to our lives, right?
Right. Right.
And then also people have a desire to make an impact.
Mhm.
We all innate have this desire to make an impact. And finally, the desire to be becoming, to grow, which is why the self-help industry is like $1 trillion, right? So when you synthesize these four things together, the only effective way to do that is to create a highly collaborative environment. And then the boss becomes the purpose of the company. So one of the things I do is help the organization not only collaborate together, but define who they are based on the collective values, based on the
Right.
collective
Right.
purpose. And then that bubbles up instead of top down. So now the entire organization has decided their purpose, their values. And it's a really powerful thing because imagine you
Right.
hire a new employee and they say, how did you guys come up with these values and this purpose? And you
Right.
ask anyone in the organization and they can say, I did that. Instead of
Right.
saying, oh, the boss did that. I did that because they did.
Right.
So I've created a model where this tremendous collaboration, incredible visibility and transparency, radical visibility, radical transparency. Everyone treats each other as adults. And
Mhm.
there's two key principles of self-management. Number one, no violence.
Right.
And by
That
no
makes sense.
violence,
Right.
I mean no coercion, no manipulation tactics, no fear tactics, right?
Right. 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 Right.
Um, and the second is absolute self accountability. You can't have that kind of freedom without making yourself fully accountable.
Right.
So there's these two principles that have to be continuously upheld. So I always say in a very traditional company, Danny, you can hide out for months. You
Mhm.
can
Oh
hide out
yeah.
from your,
Yeah.
especially large organizations. You
Yeah.
could be an employee that hides out and just coasts for months, right?
Right.
Because maybe your boss doesn't have the time to get to you enough to see what's going on. So you can hide out for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
In self-management environment, because everything is highly collaborative, your team will call you out within days. Like, hey, what's going on? Where are you? You're not,
Well, that makes
you
sense,
haven't put
right?
in for, you're not taking time off. What are you doing? So there's a sense of accountability to each other and a sense of integrity that says we are here to work together and collaborate together. In fact, we even have collaborative agreements amongst teams that where they kind of set up like a almost like an SLA, a special relationship kind of agreement where it says I commit to responding within a certain time frame when you have requests and so on. So rather than it being like, hey, I'm just going to be hands off, guys, do your thing. It's more like let's all work together and do our thing together.
Right,
It's
right,
more
right.
about that, which you can imagine you can get a lot more done a lot faster
Right,
without middle management layer. So it's actually more profitable because your cost structure is lower. You don't need any
right.
middle management to do this. And the collaboration creates incredible innovation. Some of it comes from places you never would have expected it. So you've
Right,
got a
right.
highly collaborative, highly innovative company that gets more done faster, more effectively. So
Mhm.
when you think about it, it's not just good for people, it's actually a smart strategic business model.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. This is a lot of good information because it's a transformation of a company to run more efficiently, but to get everybody involved as a team, which gives everybody a sense of I guess of
Agency.
feeling. Yes, right. And everybody's contributing, and they know that if they drop the ball, everybody's gonna say, "Hey, what's going on?" So that's really good team organization, right? But how hard is it when you go into an organization for the owners? Sometimes we're the ones that struggle, right? In letting go and saying, okay, I'm going to trust that this team is going to handle this and I don't have to babysit them anymore. What does that look like, that type of transformation?
Yeah, I've got to tell you, the first approach that I did outside of the organization I came from, I don't think I was as effective at making that transformation because I was sort of expecting the CEO to be on board with it, right? And they were in principle, but once they started seeing how things were operating, they started sensing a little less control and it made them uncomfortable. And so what I learned was that you have to create a model where there's incredible visibility ongoing on a weekly basis, which is why I adopted these OKRs. We actually track the objectives and the key results and the activities on a weekly basis in an agile fashion. We do it in 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, we do a check-in. There's balanced scorecards. So there's like this red, yellow, green flag, and we can quickly identify anything that's yellow or red. Whatever's green is sort of like pat in the back. You're doing a great job. Let's talk about what's blocking us from moving forward and
Right, right.
collaborating on that. So the key thing is to create an environment where the CEO gets their life back. And that's the key thing because
Yeah, yeah,
um, I get this feedback a lot. It's like I got my life back. Because a lot of times, especially if you've been in business for a while, you
yeah.
find yourself doing stuff you have to do, but it's not necessarily what you want to do.
Mhm.
And as the owner or as the CEO, you end up doing it because you have to, and
Right.
which sucks the life out of you. It really does, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a conversation you would share with your employees because you don't want them to think that you're just kind of going through the motion, but it happens.
Right.
So it's about getting your life back, creating a model where you start to feel comfortable,
Mhm.
where you have visibility for things getting done. And this takes a few quarters to
Right.
effectively
Right.
make this transition, about 2 quarters.
Mhm.
And then as the executive team begins to see that the team steps up and gets things done, and then you get to have more freedom to do things that you love doing more of, it starts to make this transition where it's like, hey, this is working pretty good. You know,
Right. Right.
I've got
Right.
the operational stuff taken care of. I can focus on the things that I love. I
Right.
got the team working together. But
Right.
it's definitely a challenge if you're not consciously ready.
Right.
Um, the biggest challenge sometimes is this idea that, especially the older generation that was sold on, when you get to the top, you've made it.
Yeah.
So now someone comes in and says, actually, uh, you've made it when you enable more leaders. And to do that, you
Yeah.
have to remove
Yes.
yourself from the top. You got
Yes.
to come back down here and be the same as everybody else, but you are the catalyst
Right.
to make all this happen. So the reward is in the freeing everybody. The
Right.
reward is in the higher consciousness of being of service to
Right.
enabling other leaders, to
Yes.
how to allow people to grow, to make an impact, to
Right.
be becoming, to be part of something greater than themselves, to have
Right.
meaning behind their doing.
Right.
So, you know, if you're a megalomaniac, you're not going to embrace this,
Right. I think
you know?
whether it's just
So,
like, it's like a habit, right? Habits
yeah,
are very difficult to break, so you have to work on it every day. Maybe you can't transform one day to the next, but it's got to be baby steps, moving in the right direction,
absolutely.
right?
And one of the reason I adopted I learned like coaching principles. I became a certified life coach, certified executive coach, was because I realized I need to have some tools to help make this mind shift. Sometimes the mind shift needs to happen because uh, that executive has a belief that doesn't serve them very well. And
All
yeah,
right.
actually, that's the hardest part of all this is changing the mind shift, shifting the mind of some of the leaders, especially those who were sold on this idea that getting to the top is where you want to be.
Right.
So usually it's someone who's evolved a little bit more consciously, who's
Mhm.
desiring to be of service to others. They're about giving back. Unless you've achieved sort of that consciousness, it's going to be very difficult to make that shift. So it's not for everyone, but reason I became also a coach and I learned some principles about how to help someone because sometimes there's some traumas that
Right.
people still
Right.
holding on to. So I work and I use neuroscience technique to help make that transition. So I coach the CEOs too to make that transition because it's not an easy transition, especially when you think this is my baby, but it's not impossible. It's not something you could do alone. I could tell you that. You definitely need an expert, someone who's been there, who's
Right.
gone through that transition to help you through it.
Right. 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 I can definitely imagine it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge, and just like everything else that we do, you just got to make those changes on a daily basis, not expecting that to give you results instantly. No instant gratification on this, but it's just working through it and being persistent every day.
Yeah.
Now, many business owners, such as yourselves, you have your business. I mean, you're successful on that, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Also, also, you think sometimes beyond that and to create additional revenue streams through potentially passive investment aside from your regular business to help either prepare you for retirement or potentially provide additional income for your family. What are your thoughts on that?
I think anything you want to do, give yourself, if you can, at least 10 years, especially if it's different than what you've been doing. Like put a
Mhm,
plan in place to get you there.
mhm, mhm.
Use tools that are available, establish authority around it, start writing blogs, put content out, get your thought leadership out, and allow yourself time to make that transition. Now, if you're going into a path that's more of like in the area I live in, it turns out there's a need for people to clean these boilers that are the instant boilers, they
Right,
need to be
right, right, right.
clean. And it's
Mhm.
like there's a business opportunity in doing that, because you can extend the life of this thing. So sometimes you just need to be creative in finding what you could do. There's a
Mhm.
lot of information out there. YouTube University is a great way to learn
Right.
things.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But don't be afraid, even if you've gotten older, to experiment and find a hobby that could become something you make a business out of. My older brother started grafting fig trees, like this old fig tree that's like
Right,
it has a heritage of thousands of years.
right,
And he
right,
did it
right.
as a hobby. Now he's got hundreds of orders for these grafts from all over the world. People that want this fig tree. He stumbled from a hobby into a business. So
Nice.
find something that makes you happy. That's a hobby. Do it on the side, and let it build over time. Be patient. Patient is your best friend.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, as we wrap up, what does 2025 look like for you?
Well, my main client, we just launched a new product. It's a empathetic marketing platform called AI CMO. People can find that on aicmo.io. We are implementing our empathetic operating model this year and continue to expand on the self-management principles at Zero Company. And we're expanding the Bliss Business podcast where we talk about these topics and also invite other guests to talk about this topic.
Yeah.
And who knows, I'm considering some other exciting things. I have a book coming out in collaboration with my 8-year-old daughter, who's a great illustrator.
Right.
That's coming out very soon, called Modi Buddies. It's about
Mhm.
how to have emotional intelligence as a child. And
Yeah.
I have a final book that I've been waiting to publish. It's ready, so I might launch these 2 books this year. We'll see.
Fun stuff, exciting stuff. Looks like you got a good year ahead of you. Well, Tullio, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful insights and what you do and how you can help organizations level up. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how could they get a hold of you?
The easiest way to do that is just to go to TullioSiragusa.com. That's TullioSiragusa.com. Everything is there. My blogs, my videos, links to my speaking profile, anything you want to find is there, and you can connect with me there through there too.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tullio. And to our
My
audience,
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And to our audience, please go to ocpowerplayers.com, find us and follow us on your favorite channel, and don't forget to like us.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.